Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here we translate testimonies of people who went through near-death experiences. Today we are going to know the story of Henrique. He says that he died, and after leaving the body he was carried into the earth, where he was surprised by the beauties he found there. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Activate the notification bell to be notified of each new video. Now let's listen to Henry's testimony. I grew up in a religious family and was always taught to believe in God and the supernatural. Growing up, I went to church every Sunday and attended Bible study groups. I believed everything I was taught and thought that God was always present in my life. However, as I got older, I started to question some of the things I was taught. I started reading more about science and getting interested in things that weren't necessarily religious. I became a curious teenager and a critical thinker. Gradually, I began to think more skeptically about the supernatural. I began to question the existence of God and to believe that many of the things I was taught had no scientific basis. I became more selective about what I believed and questioned things more often. Life also contributed to my becoming a skeptical man. I've had some difficult experiences, like the death of a close friend and my parents' divorce. These experiences made me question divine justice and believe that life can be cruel and unfair at times. However, even though I have become more skeptical of many things, I have always kept an open mind and respect for others' beliefs. I believe that everyone has the right to believe what they want and that it is important to respect the different perspectives that exist in the world. Well, what completely changed me was the experience I went through during heart surgery. I spent a long time trying to share my experience with people, but I was met with skepticism and disbelief. My suggestion is that everyone inform anyone they know who has been through a similar situation about the existence of support and study groups for survivors. On March 17, 2006, a Friday, I had a cardiac catheterization to investigate a stress test that had come back abnormal. Also, I was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation but had to wait for test results before I could be treated. Unfortunately, the catheterization revealed a blockage in the left side of my heart, which required open heart surgery. To treat the two blockages, it was necessary to change two arteries. While my wife was scared, the doctors considered this to be standard procedure. However, due to the severity of the obstruction, we were informed that I would be required to remain in the hospital and the surgery would be performed on the morning of Monday, the 20th of March, 2006. The night before the operation, friends and work colleagues welcomed us and reassured me that everything would work out and that it was a common procedure. I was admitted to Kansas Heart Hospital in Wichita, Kansas. I wasn't worried about the procedure until the evening of March 19, 2006. Everyone left that night and my family planned to come back the next morning. The hospital's medical staff performed their usual tasks and prepared everything for the procedure, including the necessary tests. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to walk around the hospital with my bag. Was in a short hallway with an exit door and had no idea what was going on. That's when the big two-way door opened and an ambulance vehicle appeared outside with the driver approaching. As I stood, I turned to see a hospital gurney being wheeled down the hall towards the exit door, with a body bag attached to a deceased patient. Reality set in and I realized I had no one to talk to. My carefree attitude was replaced by fear of the hospital. The staff gave me a sedative to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, it was Monday, March 20th, 2006, 7 a.m. and it was time for surgery. I remember being wheeled in with my wife by my side as the team prepared me for surgery. I was taken into the operating room and the lights were turned off. When I woke up in the afternoon, I was informed that the surgery went well. Since it was open heart surgery, surgeons bypassed 2 arteries on the left side and performed a labyrinth treatment to treat atrial fibrillation. My medical records indicated that my vital signs were within the normal range after the surgery performed on March 20, 2006, although I still had atrial fibrillation due to the irregular heartbeat. The goal was to recover from the operation and consider future treatment options for the condition. Now I will relate what happened on March 22, 2006, when I had a near-death experience, NDE, which was different from a typical occurrence due to medications or hallucinations caused by a serious illness. I can tell the difference based on my own experiences, which includes several hospital anecdotes about how I was treated, cared for, and medicated while in a coma. I lost track of time when I fell into a coma, and the first day after my surgery was drawing to a close, with people leaving the room. I had breathing problems the first night after surgery and needed support to breathe. I got better the next day and was taken off the breathing apparatus early. However, my progress over the next 2 days was unpredictable and things did not go as planned. The doctors were baffled and concerned, and questioned whether I was bleeding internally or whether there was an underlying illness causing my breathing difficulties. They continued to run treatments and tests to find out what was going on. The date was changed to March 22, 2006. The day continued with low vital indicators. I suffered once again with breathing problems. I remember feeling like I was drowning with a weight on my chest. My breathing was weak, my lungs were empty, and I was struggling for air. I felt like I was dying, so I mentally asked for help. During surgery, the fan I was on seemed to make a magical sound, transmitting different melodies. I remember the staff going in and out of the room. It was dark, with the lights on, cold, and with the curtains closed around the bed. 4 bags of IV stakes were placed on my bed. Many doctors and nurses were watching me. I heard the sound of machine tones and was breathing again with the help of extra blankets. The doctors and caregivers got me into a comfortable position. The 2 nurses watched through the observation window for hours as I stood without looking away. My vitals and condition worsened while I was on the ventilator. Something wasn't right. The doctors were baffled and arguing with each other. My wife was in a frenzy, praying nonstop, while my body began to fail due to kidney failure. It was painful for my family to witness my failure. My chances of survival were rapidly diminishing. The doctors were baffled as to what was happening to me, and later that day they informed my wife that she should call the family immediately as I might not survive the night. During that period of depression, I had the strangest experience I can remember. It was something I had never felt before. I saw myself, in a dream or hallucination, in a big problem outside my body, in a hospital. I was in spirit outside the hospital emergency room hallway when my friend came down to see me and stopped to talk to someone who was staring at him from the ER door. I looked around and noticed the pictures on the wall. I remembered a picture of a rural landscape I saw on my last visit to the hospital corridors, when I was still healthy. Suddenly, I found myself in a darkened conference room, surrounded by doctors sitting around me, while one of them, standing, led the discussion with charts and information about my condition. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I was terrified and felt like I was going to die. During my brief interaction, I had the feeling of being underground while looking at a statue of a philosopher. Suddenly, everything went dark and the temperature began to rise, becoming hotter and hotter. The surrounding landscape was rocky and dusty, like an underground canyon, and I was taken down as the heat increased until it was completely dark. After that, I woke up to an intense light that dazzled my eyes. The sun was shining brightly, and as I turned around, I could see mountains covered with trees and a valley with a beautiful river flowing through it. As I looked the other way, I saw a river flowing towards a calm and serene ocean, with no sign of human presence. There were no bridges, people, or buildings of any kind there, just pure, unadulterated beauty. When I got there, I was fascinated by the beauty of the place. The landscapes were breathtaking, with majestic mountains and deep valleys, and I could see underground rivers flowing all over the place. The temperature was hot but bearable, and I felt no discomfort from being so deep beneath the surface. As I walked, I noticed that there was something different about that place. There was an energy I couldn't explain, but it was powerful and palpable. As I walked further and further, I was drawn into this energy and arrived at an underground city. The city was huge and beautiful. It was like a work of art carved in stone. The buildings were all stone and glass, with lush gardens at every corner. The people who lived there were incredibly evolved and kind. They showed me around, taught me about the underground life, and shared their wisdom with me. I couldn't believe there was such a wonderful and mysterious world hidden right under our feet. I have always been a skeptical man of anything involving the supernatural. However, this changed dramatically after the near-death experience. During my NDE, I was transported to a place I could never have imagined, the center of the earth. It wasn't a place of fire and brimstone as I'd always imagined, but rather a place of unparalleled beauty. I found myself surrounded by breathtaking landscapes, cities with futuristic architecture, and inhabitants that seemed to be from another world. It was as if I had been transported to another dimension. The inhabitants I saw were very different from us humans. They were tall, thin, and had a slender and graceful appearance. I felt a sense of peace and that all was well while I was there. I was fascinated by everything I saw, but unfortunately, my experience came to an end and I was brought back to life. Since then, I've been trying to understand what happened to me and what I saw. I have no way of proving what happened to me, but I know that what I saw was real. I know that there is a place in the center of the earth, a place of incomparable beauty and an evolved people living down there. And that's something I will always carry with me. Somehow I managed to survive. The night ended in the hospital and I was alive. I went through the darkest of times, but God was in my thoughts and my wife's prayers were answered. Medical tests were changed, medication was changed, and a procedure was performed to confirm that there was no internal bleeding. The doctors were still surprised and confused, but they were relieved to see that I had returned. They put me in a coma, and I was on mechanical ventilation for about 20 days. I spent 30 days in the hospital and 24 days in the intensive care unit. I know the feeling of breathing again. Nothing beats that first breath of life, even if the hospital air smells cool and refreshing and delicious. I remember waking up after getting off the machine and asking my wife how the surgery went. "You've been here 20 days, she told me. After a brief pause, I fixed my eyes on her and my thoughts surged, remembering everything I had experienced during that time. I told her that this could only have been a miracle, and she said that she looked forward to this moment every day. Since then, I have dedicated my life to goodness and spirituality. My life has completely changed, now it is full of care and compassion. I believe that God touched me and blessed me with life. I was given a gift that only those who have been touched in any way can understand. The light is so present in me that I can feel it. I can feel and sense people's despair, happiness and sadness just by looking at them. Although it is a wonderful gift, I paid a lot for my past mistakes. Now, I want to declare God's grace to all mankind. The irony is that it's always around, waiting for you to accept it. The light is here, for everyone. So what did you think of this amazing story? Leave your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.